The guy never could have imagined that in the new era, he would now have such a villainous character. Moreover, he receives very tasty rewards for it. Wushin immediately opens his stats menu again. He occupies the same position, but now his power level is at the 6th realm of supernatural insight. Also now our main character has many new abilities like fist art, and now he has as many as 3,000 villain points, which means the store is unlocked. After the guy reads about the extra special physique, he is surprised. He is also attracted by some kind of divine ability in the form of a dragon's eye. The tsundere system answers the guy that the sacred body of the ancient dragon is formed from the power of the ancient dragon. When it is fully awakened, you can be reborn as an immortal. After Wukong realizes that he is able to be reborn from a drop of blood and gain immortality, he realizes that he can resist the heavenly Tao. The villain's tsundere system reminds our main character that his new sacred body of the ancient dragon is only 3% open, not to mention the confrontation. Wukong's tsundere system continues telling him that now the heavenly Tao can kill him with one of his fingers, so he shouldn't become arrogant ahead of time. In response to all this, the guy asks if the system can't just let him enjoy his new powers. She has a cute face, but she says disgusting things. But the mood immediately returns to the main hero after he remembers that the store is now unlocked for him, so he betrays the system to study it together. At this moment, our main character imagines that he is going to a real supermarket of Sigma goods in order to make a purchase as in the real world. Next, we see that our main hero apparently decides to purchase the seeds of primordial chaos for himself. They cost him as much as 2,000 villain points. After a couple of moments, the course of events speeds up a little, and we watch as our main character's maid walks somewhere very carefully, peeking around the corner. Next, we observe how the celestial being and the maidservant of our main hero does not look very good. She wonders why at this time. Right now, she is forced to endure her icy breath, and due to the strong icy breath, her techniques do not work at all. She is trying to think of something. That is why we continue to watch how the celestial woman continues to wander around this temple. She realizes that now she can't fall asleep. But despite the fact that this girl should under no circumstances fall asleep, we watch from her face as her eyes slowly begin to close, and she becomes sleepy. Until this girl closes her eyes, she remains completely, in my opinion, but we watch as our main character appears in front of her. But she understands that at this moment, it will be difficult for even Buddha to save her. But apparently this girl exaggerated a little because our main character, who is probably just passing by, decides to poke his maid in the forehead and something happens. Immediately after our main hero touched the forehead of his maid, the ice that had recently covered her begins to rapidly evaporate into the atmosphere. Wukong immediately catches his maid, preventing her from falling to the ground. He realizes that this girl's body temperature is at least minus 38 degrees. The fantasy world is really not scientific. But immediately after the celestial woman stops freezing from the incredible cold and finds herself in the hands of our main hero, she begins to smile and rub against his robe. Next, we watch as this celestial woman slowly opens her eyes because of a petal that accidentally falls right on the tip of her nose. But after she finally wakes up, she is sharply surprised because she did not expect at all that she would wake up and, moreover, that she would find herself in the company of our shitty hero. At this moment, our main hero looked to this girl like the main character of some Korean series. She was immediately surprised by the unexpected appearance of His Highness. She immediately moved some distance away from our main character, and embarrassed thanked him for helping her at a very needed moment. Immediately after this incident, Mu Yao Chen's level of empathy towards our main character increased by more than 3 times. The guy received another 500 villain points for this incident. The guy further replied that it was just a trifle. More important for him is to find out what happened to his maid, and why she was in such a frightening state when he found her. At this moment, our main character was thinking about whether the Emperor's chi, which leaked while he was raising his level to a new level, could have influenced. Further, the girl replied that her iced out body had mutated, and before it had manifested itself stably. But this time, for some reason, everything turned out earlier than planned. Having turned on the thinking mode with the help of 200 IQ, our main hero immediately realized that it seemed that he had launched the main character's plot ahead of schedule, and this led to such consequences. Continuing to reflect on what was happening, our main character suggested that according to the plan, there should have been an episode where Lin Feng appears and heroically saves the beauty. And after the true planned hero of this plot saves this beauty, most likely she would have to devote her life to her savior who saved her life. Our main hero understood that, much to the pity for the true hero, our main hero has system tips with which he can get ahead of everyone. After the guy, through reflection, understands the situation he finds himself in, he turns his Korean idol beauty to maximum and tells the maid that he can solve her problem. Having heard that this serious problem can be solved by our main character, this girl is expectedly very surprised and asks the guy to tell him in more detail. After all, this waifu's Tao body is not just an ordinary mutation. Her ancestor has been looking for it for years, but has found something wrong, and has found an effective way to really solve it. In response to this, Wuchen tells the maid that her body is excellent, but the cultivation technique is too weak, and the two parameters simply do not fit together, so she gets problems. Summoning 1,000 villain points in front of him, Wuchen informs the celestial goddess that he has one heavenly rank cold attribute technique that can definitely solve this problem. After the mate of our main hero hears that the guy has a real heavenly rank technique with him, she is very surprised and cannot believe it. It cannot be said that this girl's ancestor thought of such a decision, but the heavenly rank technique is so valuable that even if this holy land existed forever, it would be alone. This girl simply couldn't understand how this guy could treat such a value so frivolously, so she says that it's too valuable, and she doesn't deserve it. In response to this, Vukan replies that she is his person, so an insignificant celestial rank tech is worth nothing. She has a special trait, and if she can figure it out earlier, he will benefit. In fact, our main character understood that this girl has violet chi energy, which means she will be luckier if she does not have any strange encounters or problems. The celestial being was completely bewildered after she heard this. She wondered if the guy really knew that her feature was suitable for pair training. Throwing the equipment into the girl's hands, Vukan tells her that if she doesn't need the equipment, she can just throw it away. There is no point in taking away the gift he gave her. The guy understood that this girl was only 30% subordinate to him, so he understood that he needed to be confident and not allow himself anything unnecessary. The guy continued to think that if he cannot lull her vigilance, then he will not get this greatest treasure that is worth more than much. Such is his vile plan. Our main character was almost 100% sure that after this girl took advantage of his gifts, she would consider him a damn good person who had saved her life. And the plan worked, because the system notified the guy that a change in Mu Yao Chen's feelings had been detected that deviates from the plot, so the guy gets 2,000 villain points. Looking at the notification about the crediting of villain points, the guy was very happy because he spent only 1,000 villain points on this heavenly rank technique, after which he received 2,000 in return. At this point, the course of events stops, and we continue as we accelerate, until the next morning comes, and the entire environment, including the birds, wakes up. Transferring to the familiar hall where most matters are decided, we see how representatives and students of two groups gathered in front of our main character. After Vukan is convinced that everyone is assembled, he declares to everyone present that this time he gathered them all because he has one thing for everyone. After the entire crowd gathered in front of him turns their attention to him, Vukan points to himself, saying that from now on he will protect the holy land of Tianshui on which he is located. Representatives of the squad in red clothes do not understand why the guy is saying this, because everyone can capture these holy lands in just 2 days. But now the guy has stood up. The psycho we already know tells our main character, holding a weapon in his hand, that he spared him yesterday for the sake of the Emperor. But he still buries himself and aggressively heads towards problems. After hearing the presentation addressed to him, the guy turned on the Sigma mode and asked this idiot if he didn't agree. In his thoughts, he realized that his new villain glasses were coming to him on their own. The psycho continued saying that he does not agree, because in the state of the Great Tao, strength comes first, and if the guy wants to protect these lands, then he will first have to defeat him. Having turned on the killer mode, our main character responds to this idiot who thinks a lot about himself that this is the first time he hears such a demand, in which case he decides to help him. Immediately after our main character summons his purple aura thanks to his latest increase in strength, his opponent realizes that he is the weakest here. Our main character didn't even need to approach this scum in order to inflict damage on him. This guy tried to understand how this was possible, because his Jindao body could not withstand the onslaught of the aura. Meanwhile, our main character continued to advance towards this idiot who dared to object to his highness. The body of the Jindao did not impress our main character at all. While our main hero continued to simply reduce the distance to this man who had objections, various injuries continued to appear on his body, and he received more damage. This guy had no idea where our main hero got so much power. He understood that he could no longer stand here because if he continued, he would simply die. A representative of this faction at this moment falls to the ground, saying that the Holy Land of Jindao is in the power of his highness, and he begs our main hero to show mercy. While this old man continues to beg our main protagonist to calm down and spare this pathetic life, we watch as this man continues to suffer. Our main hero immediately stopped the attempt to kill this guy, because an exemplary worker rushing every day to let him earn villain points should be fine. Immediately after our main character defiantly showed his dominance in front of everyone, all these two factions bowed at his feet, saying that everything will be as he pleases. After everyone bowed to him, Vukan addressed the crowds in front of him and asked them not to worry about losses, because he would compensate their losses in full. The same man who had just nearly died from the powerful aura of our main hero fell to his knee, thanking his highness for his kindness. The second student joined him. However, the old man added by telling our main character that he shouldn't do this because they started the fight for the Holy Land, so they don't dare mention anything about compensation. At this moment, the maid of our main hero watched in surprise as her master solved all the problems. She was surprised by the fact that the cause of the disaster was so easy to solve. Immediately after this, the main character's villain system notifies him that his speech was worthy of a villain, so as a reward he receives 100 villain points. But our main character's speech continued to have an impact, so another notification from the system notified him that he had received a whopping 150 more villain points. System notifications from the villain system did not stop coming to our main character because his speech complied with all the canons of a real villain, but the guy did not consider it difficult. Another message from the system notified Wushin that the task of recapturing the Purple Key had already been completed by 60%, so that he received one drop of the spirit of the ancient dragon in Narada. Moreover, our main character once again managed to gain a level of loyalty from Mu Yao Chen, and for this he receives a whole 1,000 villain points in his piggy bank this time. Our main character didn't even try to hide the fact that these 1,000 points were easy for him to get, but still he still wants to pull out the fur of the child of fate. But suddenly something sharp and unexpected happens. A bald man runs into the hall and shouts to the elder that someone has killed a follower of their holy land of Jindao. At this moment, in response to this, the sage of the holy lands on which we are located, he calls the one who appeared as a daring dog, because he dared to come to his lands in darts. The main villain system notified our protagonist that Lin Feng had been detected quickly approaching. The guy understood that a good show would soon begin. Then the course of events abruptly ends, and we are transported to a place outside the palace of the holy land of Tianshui. We watch as someone suddenly breaks down the main gate. Before us is the true protagonist of this plot. At least he should have been. He wonders how these bastards dared to invade his holy land of Tianshui. We continue to watch as this man continues to scatter all the followers of the Holy Land who came here to conquer this territory. And finally, before us is the same Lin Feng who is at the late stage of the Kingdom of Moving Mountains. He discovers that there are still no traces of the battle, which means he arrived on time. Then the attention of this Lin Feng is attracted by some silhouette standing in the distance, one who appeared as a daring dog, because he dared to come to his lands in darts. The main villain system notified our protagonist that Lin Feng had been detected quickly approaching. The guy understood that a good show would soon begin. Then the course of events abruptly ends, and we are transported to a place outside the palace of the Holy Land of Tianshui. We watch as someone suddenly breaks down the main gate. Before us is the true protagonist of this plot. At least he should have been. He wonders how these bastards dared to invade his holy land of Tianshui. We continue to watch as this man continues to scatter all the followers of the Holy Land who came here to conquer this territory. And finally, before us is the same Lin Feng who is at the late stage of the Kingdom of Moving Mountains. He discovers that there are still no traces of the battle, which means he arrived on time. Then the attention of this Lin Feng is attracted by some silhouette standing in the distance. He decides that this time he will definitely save the Holy Land of Tianshui, so he relies on someone. That very silhouette standing in front asks this guy not to worry, because they are with the Holy Land of Guyu. Everything is fair and educated people and every martial artist. Now before us are representatives of the Holy Land of Guyu. They are at the stage of the late kingdom of life and death, led by an old man with a bald head, confident in his abilities. After Lin Feng sees his mentor's father in front of him, he immediately calms him down, telling him not to worry, because he called the master to help them recapture the lands. Immediately after this, the grandfather in a red robe turns to the same old man with a bald head whom Lin Feng brought. He asks this old brat what this all means. This old man with his gang of bald men replies that their two great holy lands are warming their hands on someone else's misfortune, and thus they offend others. That's why they came here. The old man continues, gloomily looking at the old man in a red robe. He tells him that naturally he couldn't just ignore it, and that's why he came to help. This guy who brought this crowd of bald heads tells his mentor father that he doesn't need to be too grateful to him, because that's all any student should do. But the mentor immediately calls him a complete idiot, because the difficulties of the Holy Land have long been solved by His Highness, and he is trying to stir up a new dispute by creating new problems. But after this guy hears that the dispute has already been resolved by our main hero, he freezes in surprise, asking how this is even possible and who did it. A couple of moments later, behind these two old men, the silhouette of our main character will appear, who immediately sees people from the Holy Land of Guyu. He calls this an impressive act. After our main hero enters the scene of action, the old man with a bald head cannot understand why His Imperial Highness is here. Did he really find out something and appear? Starkey in red attire reminds everyone that His Imperial Highness is here, and he is leading his troops to break in. He asks if he wants to kill him. This old man, who was already anticipating a fight, begins to tremble and answer that everything is not so, because he was only carrying out orders and he does not dare show disrespect, so he will go. Our main character simply cannot help but notice that the wisest sovereign from the Holy Land of Guyu is well informed, because he participated in many battles for the Holy Land. After our main character says this, active conversations begin, because it really looks like the Holy Land where they came to help last time no longer exists. Starkey immediately tries to justify himself by telling His Highness that it was Lin Feng who asked them for help, and he only extended his hand. If he had something bad, he would have died. At this moment, the true main hero of the plot cannot understand what is happening, because it was just the murder of several terrible soldiers. Then why is the wisest ruler so afraid? Looking at our main hero, Lin Feng realizes that he looks familiar. Meanwhile, Wu Chen tells this guy that he really won't give up until the very last. Immediately after our main hero says this line, he puts his hand in front of him to summon the shadow guards. He used this technique for the first time. But immediately after this strange phenomenon occurs, everyone around them simply cannot help but notice this strange fluctuation in the aura. They cannot believe the guesses that came to their minds. Next, we watch two figures appear out of nowhere, one man in a hood holding the other who is not in good shape. Everyone could not turn their eyes because at that moment, the power available to those who were at the level of the kingdom of the true king was used, which is rare. After this tantalizing figure in a dark hood appears out of nowhere, with some person who goes flying to Earth, that same old man is surprised. The beaten man who just appeared from this portal reports that he is a man of the wisest Lord Guyu. Everyone listens to him attentively. He continues by saying that 10 days ago, when the Tian Shui ancestor passed away, the wisest ordered him to reveal this and muddy the waters so that he could profit as a third party. But immediately after this beaten man said this information, the old man with a bald head raised his hand, pointing a projectile at the man and wrapping his arms around him in a lie in front of everyone. The old man with a bald head continued by saying that they were simply trying to slander him for inciting unrest, so today he will clear the holy land of Tian Shui for them by killing this man. But the man who just recently appeared from the portal in order to tell everyone the truth is not going to die while a magic projectile is flying at him. He asks for help. Fortunately, the old man who is the wisest of this holy land manages to aim his protective magic in order to save the man. He asks the attacker if he wants to remove the witness. An old man with a bald head who is trying to defend his position responds to Brother Mushan that this beaten man is clearly obeying someone's order and they are trying to blatantly put him on the spot. But even though this old man tried to explain himself, the chief of these lands continued to stand his ground, asking the bald man where he was in a hurry or whether he had a clear conscience. Meanwhile, the man who was supposed to be the hero according to the script reports that he has known the wisest Lord Guy for many years, and he believes 100% in his honesty. However, the surviving witness reports that he actually framed him, because the wisest Lord Gayu did this in order to justifiably send his troops and absorb the holy land of Tian Shui. After this man, not in the best possible way, says this, they immediately attack him and say that this is not possible, and besides, someone definitely ordered him to say this line. In response to this, the surviving witness takes something out of his pocket, saying that he has evidence of his words, because the Technevo stone was able to write down everything, and this is proof. A couple of moments after this surviving witness manages to get out his shadow camera in order to reveal what happened between her and this old man, everyone freezes. After the guilt of this old man flared up, our main character asked him if he had just ordered that he be deprived of his life in case he was up to something bad. After this old man with a bald head realized what position he was in, he immediately fell to the ground and bowed to our main character, saying that he must have lost his mind. However, the shadow guard had already begun to act. He slowly moved his hand towards this old man, saying that disrespect for the immortal dynasty was punishable by death. The old man was terrified. One more moment and we then watch how this old man, who was caught in a lie, is caught by the huge hand of the shadow guard. He begins to shout that he is from the palace of the ruler of people. After the owner of these lands on which all this is happening heard what this old man with a bald head had just said, he wondered whether he heard everything correctly or not. Meanwhile, the second old man with long hair tried to understand how they could be involved in the affairs of the state of the Great Tao, because it all sounds at least strange. While the process continued, some people wondered whether the shadow guard could single-handedly destroy the Holy Land. Right? The spiritual wealth of the immortal dynasty is incomprehensible. Meanwhile, Wuken realizes that today's move was to test the power of the shadow guard, but he did not expect that he would be so strong, so he has a bigger trump card up his sleeve. Nevertheless, he wants to survive in this alien world where there are many very strong people, which means he needs to become the strongest as quickly as possible in order to survive in hardcore. Further, our main character reports that there is no longer any need for the Holy Land of Guyu to exist, where this old man with a bald head caught in a lie is from. Next, the shadow guard of our main character begins to deal harshly with these people from the Holy Land of this bald man. He shouts that he will not spare Wuchen even when he becomes a ghost. After the main character, who could not become the main character due to the appearance of a villain, hears the name Liu Wuchen, he is very surprised to realize that it is really him. Meanwhile, the sage of this land thanks His Highness for lending them a helping hand at an important moment, and allowing them to know the truth and avoid ignorance. But suddenly the fake main character intervenes in the conversation, and tells the mentor that this man clearly has an evil heart. He's probably up to something, so you shouldn't trust him. The mentor was clearly in shock after making accusations towards our main hero who resolved the conflict. He asked him how he dares to disrespect His Highness. After a couple of moments, the man asks our main character if he remembers him, because 3 years ago he wounded his father and destroyed his Lin family, and now he dared to come to this earth. But instead of supporting this loser, only judgmental glances awaited him. The maid of our main character said that elder brother Lin was too stupid, because what could His Highness want from them? After a couple of moments of war, this guy decides that he will continue to stand his ground, turning to Wuchen. He informs everyone that today, he will reveal his true identity as a villain. Immediately after this, his mentor approaches this guy, telling him that he brought the wolf into the house and did not repent. He informs him that he was expelled from among the students of these lands. The guy who was supposed to become the most important character is simply at a loss what is happening. He doesn't understand why no one believes him, because he is the first genius of the Holy Land of Tian Shui. Meanwhile, our main character feels simply great, watching how the result of his actions becomes such an interesting performance. The celestial being watches him, After a couple of moments, Wuchen informs his maid that he is very tired. In response to this, Yao Chen replies to His Highness that in that case, they can go and rest. After the fake main character sees the scene of his sister communicating so well with our main character, he asks her what she is doing. Has he really seduced her too? Next, the celestial goddess informs Lin Feng that she understands that he misunderstood His Highness. But His Highness actually just recently saved the Holy Land of Tian Shui. Lin Feng is furious. He shouts to his sister that he sees that this Liu Wuchen, who is trying to seem like an angel, has misled her like everyone else who is standing here. Next, this fake main hero, who simply cannot believe what is happening, shouts to the maid of our main character that she simply traded her body for the safety of these lands. In response to this, the maid refuses to tolerate this and tells this guy to immediately shut up, because His Highness did not allow himself even half sinful thoughts in her direction. After this guy's sister told him that the only one who is trying to discredit her honor is he. In response to this, the guy is surprised and admits that he told his sister that he said too much. However, the girl was not going to just forget this conversation. She reminded this guy that it was he who brought enemies here and insulted His Highness, so it's just not forgotten. The celestial woman continues telling her Bart that he was the one who instigated the argument in impatience. She gave good advice, but he publicly slandered her. She asked him who he thinks she and the Holy Land are. Immediately after this girl was completely disappointed in her brother, she told him that she was definitely very mistaken about him. The guy tried to reassure her that this was not so. After blaming absolutely everything on this guy, he simply could not help but blame our main character, because he is undoubtedly to blame for the fact that he is quarreling between his brother and sister right now. Next, a notification from the villain system appears, which congratulates our main character on the fact that Mu Yao Chen and Lin Feng broke up. The fate of Lin Feng is about 200 points, and plus 4,000 points for Wuchen. Our main character broke the silence by telling this broken guy that he wanted everyone to see his true face. He asked him to explain this in more detail. Another burst of anger from this fake main character, and he accuses our main hero of hurting his father and destroying his family. But the guy asked what? Then the crowd began to discuss this guy, wondering what in Sep Mia Lin could be worthy of His Highness, and everyone began to support this topic for discussion. This guy simply couldn't believe that he was caught by a person like him. There must be some other sins. He can't become a laughingstock. He has a chance to regain his reputation. Enveloping himself in his power, this guy praised the speech of our main hero and his account of atrocities. Due to the fact that Wuchen's crimes, according to him, are unforgivable, he is going to punish him. Our main character, watching this guy, understood that it is common for a child of fate to go ahead and kill. But from now on, he is not just a step on his path to glory. Immediately after this guy tried to regain the title of the main character and show his power in front of everyone, our main character only said that it was all ambitious. After Wuchen also prepared to fight, he asked this guy why he thought that he could really compete with him with his level of strength. In response to this self-confident guy replied that since ancient times, heroes did not depend on their origin, so there was nothing he couldn't handle. He was ready to fight. Immediately after this guy realized that the battle could no longer be avoided, and that's what he wanted, he took out and immediately activated his Ice Spirit Amulet and took a fighting stance. After this guy summoned his Ice Spirit Amulet, he hovered in the sky, but after he received an order to rise from his master, he soared even higher into the air. Immediately after this ice amulet gained sufficient height and hovered in the sky, it sent a huge ice projectile at our main hero, which was larger than Wuchen. A skill called the Robe of the Ice King Jiang Lian was used against our main character, but Wuchen only grinned and asked the guy if this was his only trump card. At this moment, the sages who became observers of this confrontation could not help but notice that the sky and earth instantly changed their colors when Lin Feng took out his amulet. Immediately after the dignity of this guy was again humiliated by our main character, he, not wanting to endure ridicule, ordered his ice amulet to attack. After the order was given, this huge block of ice came out of the small amulet at full speed and headed straight into the face of our main hero. The power of this thing was simply incredibly insane. With just one attack, this madman caused real chaos, depriving dozens of people of their homes and headed straight into the face of our main hero. The power of this thing was simply incredibly insane. With just one attack, this madman caused real chaos, depriving dozens of people of their homes in an instant. Due to so much destruction, it was absolutely unclear where our main character was now. The sage understood that with such power, it was possible to defeat a powerful enemy. The old man also couldn't help but admit that if this guy became even stronger, then his holy land Tian Shui might no longer be afraid of the inquisitive eyes of other holy lands. But after the smoke from the attack of this fake main character cleared a little, we saw our main character who called the Ice Spirit Amulet a beautiful move. Despite such a powerful attack, our main hero cannot say that he looked too bad. He smiled on the contrary, and noticed that this attack was very useful on such a sunny day. The enemy of our main hero was in complete shock when the smoke cleared a little more, and he saw at the end of this trail from his attack, our main character who stood as if nothing had happened. Judging by the look of this fake main character, this was his trump card or something like that. because from his eyes it was clear that he clearly did not know what to do, and he did not expect this. A couple of moments after Wushin saw the frightened look of his opponent's animal, he wiped his robe a little and asked this guy if he wanted to escape from the battlefield. Due to the incredibly strong shock of this guy who was diluted with the aura of our main character, he realized that now he finally cannot move, because his body does not obey him. A couple of moments after Wushin realized that his opponent was immobilized, he announced that now it was his turn to attack, so he awakened his Sharingan to attack. As soon as our main character simply looked at his current opponent with a glance enhanced by technology, he immediately fell to his knees in front of him, as he should. Wushin continued to mock his opponent, and the fact that he fell to his knees so quickly, he asked him to wait a little longer because he would like what would happen next. At this moment, this Lin Feng continued to kneel in one place, rooted to the spot. He realized that the aura of our main hero was exerting too much pressure, and he could not move. A couple of moments after Wushin asked his opponent to wait, a powerful and very fast attack awaited this guy, which caused an incredible amount of damage. The sages were in complete shock because our main hero was only 18 years old. The second wondered whether it was possible to achieve such power simply by being born into a noble family. Meanwhile, the maid of our main character, observing the incredible power of her master, understood that in front of her was a man whom she wanted to serve faithfully for a very long time. At this moment, our main character realized that even a measly 3% of the protection of the sacred body of the ancient dragon was amazing, and allowed him to receive such a small amount of damage. Immediately after this, Wushin also remembered the first stage of the Eye of the Dragon, which is also available to him at the moment. He realized that the possibilities for increasing strength are simply unimaginable. Returning to the impudent man who dared to try to expose our main character as a villain, we watch as he falls exhausted to the ground, introducing his face to the stone. Everyone who was nearby and watched this fight was simply shocked by the incredible strength of his highness. For this, he receives a huge number of villain points because he showed his strength. After our main character mocked the Child of Fate so much, he achieved that Lin Feng lost his reputation and 100 points of fate, and he received 3,000 points as a villain of the system. Looking at the notice, the guy realized that since collecting fate points from Lin Feng brings him villain points, he simply cannot lose the opportunity to earn even more by killing him. The villain system immediately responded to our main character that the Child of Fate is under the protection of heaven, so this method of obtaining will have the opposite effect. The guy understood that it was odd to see so many villain points and not be able to get them. The system responded that he could gradually weaken him and kill him when he lost his title. At the moment, the guy who was publicly humiliated by our main hero named Lin Feng is still a Child of Fate who has a rare treasure in the form of an amult that he used. For the fact that our main character won, he earned many rewards from the system. He understood that this would also work. He was already thinking about how to get even more fate points with his help. After a couple of moments, an old man in a red robe approached our main character to tell him that this guy was very arrogant and self-willed, so it was better to finish him off. But now it was clear to our main character that this guy is just an excellent bloodhound rat for finding treasures, so he simply cannot kill him, having lost the opportunity. Therefore, Wushin replied that even though Lin Feng acted rashly, he did it all for the sake of the Tianshui Holy Land, so he does not deserve the death penalty right now. Next, our main character turned to the owner of these lands, the wisest Lord Mu, in order to tell him that now this person has been completely transferred to his disposal. After Wushin decided to spare this guy, this old man simply could not hold back his tears from the fact that our main hero has such a big and kind heart. The old man understood that our main character, instead of killing Lin Feng, simply handed it over to him. Obviously, this means that our main character forgives him for this offense for the first time. But this guy who was on his knees simply could not tolerate the hypocrisy of our main hero, so he asked our main hero to stop pretending. Even this guy's mentor could not tolerate such an act. He reminded this boar that his highness let him continue to live, but he is still rude to him. Only he can do something in this case. Immediately after this, we watched as this old man incredibly quickly approached this guy in order to slam his shit into the ground and leave him with a dirty tongue. Immediately after this impudent guy was punished and knocked out, the old man ordered to throw this guy into a fiery cave so that he could think carefully about his behavior. It was difficult for the teacher to look at his student in this position, but all this was done only for his benefit, because otherwise he could have already been dead. Next, a man in a red robe approached the owner of these lands to congratulate the wise Lord Mu. "The affairs of the Holy Land will soon go uphill," he said, and praised his daughter. Then we watched as the maid of our main character brought him a tray of tea and asked him to drink a little tea because he was probably tired from the fight. But after a couple of moments, the already familiar purple effects appeared in the air, which were almost certainly associated with the abilities of our main character. Next, we watched as a shadow servant of our main character appeared from the portal to report to him that the Holy Land of Gu had been destroyed from the face of the earth. Everyone was in complete shock because not even one wand of favor had passed. Everyone understood that this was truly the power of the master of the kingdom of the true king. They were glad that his highness was friends with them. Next, our main character, with a smile on his face, reminded everyone that he had already said that he has compensation, and now the Holy Land of Gu will reward them all as he promised. The two were very happy because they knew that the Gu Holy Land was much richer compared to the Tianshui Holy Land. This time they would be able to gain a lot. The third man with a gold tooth simply could not help but be surprised at the amazing generosity of our shitty hero, and if they follow him, there will definitely be quite a lot of benefit. At this point, the course of events ends abruptly, and we continue when the location changes to the room of our main character. Liu Wuchen, it is already quite late at night or evening. Moving inside our main character's room, we watch him stretch and realize that it's finally time to look at his results. Next, the tsundere system of our main character appeared. She told the guy that he had managed to accumulate as many as 13,100 villain points. She asked him if he was going to improve his technique. Wuchen said that in the Sutra of the Great Emperor Shanhai, the secret of Stanwellen by the Emperor is hidden, and countless people in all worlds crave it. Even he only has the first 3 levels. But after our main character continued to study the interface of his villainous system, he realized that it turns out that he can improve it directly without any difficulties. Immediately after our main character realized this, his system appeared in front of him and began to sulk, telling Wuchen that he clearly greatly underestimated his great captive villain system. Next, we watch as our main character's system moves closer to him in order to put a hand on his forehead and allow him to see the world. Immediately after our main character's system touched his forehead, a beam of energy began to flow from there, and the next system notification informed him that he had increased his level. Looking at his hands, the guy realized that he had just raised the level to the 4th. His cultivation had also reached the middle of the 6th realm of supernatural comprehension. He had become stronger. But the Sutra of the Great Emperor of Shanhai seems to be a little buggy, since by practicing it, the Great Emperor, his father, even reaching the 9th level, was not able to receive the title of Revered. After our main hero realized that he managed to make a lot of money, he wondered if he could get around this bug by using the villain's points to improve his level. Next, our main character called the store button to check what was new in stock, because now he has a fortune of villain points for purchases. The first thing our main character saw was the parasitic insect of the heavenly silkworm. It settles in a person's body, absorbing his power for its owner. It costs as much as 5,000. After our main character saw a version of a tracking jammer in this fantasy item, he immediately chose this purchase. He probably already had ideas about this. Immediately after our main hero bought this bug of the fantasy world, he did not hesitate and immediately sent it somewhere to be used for its intended purpose. Next, we watch as his maid approaches our main character, after which Wuchen asks her to go somewhere to fulfill the order given to him. Immediately after our main character informed his maid that he had an errand for him, he approached her and whispered that there was a certain person on their land. Unfortunately, we didn't hear what name our main character said, but the girl was surprised to hear this, having where the guy comes from. You know this man's thoughts are too deep and it's terrifying. After a couple of moments, the course of events is interrupted, and we continue when we are transported to the fiery cave where Lin Fen is located, who has spoken too much on our main character and is now punished. However, he does not agree with his punishment. He declares that this is all wrong, because it is obvious that he arrived to save the Holy Land, in order to, as the main character, save everyone. Next, a projection of himself appears in front of this guy. She begins to tease him, asking him who he has now become, and all this is only because of one rabble who did this to him. His best version of himself tried to convince him that he was the chosen one of heaven. He was supposed to become a famous person towering over others, and now he is just a homeless dog. Immediately after hearing this, the real Lin Feng demanded that the illusion of himself immediately close his mouth. He continued to believe that our main hero deserves only death after all. This guy, who had been in captivity for some time now, was 100% sure that Yimu Shan and Mu Yao Chen were currying favor with him by helping the villain, and they all deserved to die. Next, this psycho remembers his spiritual energy. Until he runs out of it, he realizes that he can activate the tablet of the will of heaven and use it to get out of here. But after a couple of moments, this guy suddenly stops in front of his grandiose plan, because he hears from the side a familiar voice that calls him Young Master. Next, some young girl comes to the aid of this Lin Feng, and immediately tries to free him from captivity. She tells the young gentleman that she has come to help. But as soon as this girl touched these chains that kept her master in captivity, she immediately received damage to her hand, and was forced to pull it back. Lin Fen further informed this girl that this jade chain has the power of earthly fire, and she is too weak to touch it, so she will not be able to rescue him. This guy continues saying that he only needs something with which he can replenish his reserves of spiritual energy. Then he will restore his strength and get out of here. But even this girl was unable to cope with this task, because the status of this girl was very low, and the objects that replenished spiritual energy were simply inaccessible to her. Looking down, continuing to be imprisoned, this guy realized that he was stuck in complete shit, and he only had useless rubbish at his fingertips. He had only one way to get out. A couple of moments after Lin Fen realizes that he has the only way left to get out of captivity here, he asks his maid to come closer to him. But as soon as this girl came a little closer to her young master, this guy immediately pounced on her and then bit her in the neck just like a vampire. Despite the fact that tears began to well up in this girl's eyes, either from pain or from fear, her body began to slowly glow with a golden flame surrounding her body. As soon as this guy bit his maid, some strange mechanism was set in motion. In an instant, it began to shine brightly.